Awesome. So welcome everyone for our Sherwood City Council work session for April 6th, 2021. We had 3 items on the agenda, but the first one is going to get rescheduled. The second one, or what's the preference, group? Do we want to do update on our status on the city manager recruitment firm proposals, or go to CIP?
Stay in order.
Firm proposals it is. Okay. Kim and Russell and Tim, do you have anything to report?
I do.
Or do we need more time? Okay.
I'm ready.
We are going to take turns. Kim's first.
Yeah. So I chose to head up checking the references for SGR. And I talked to so many people from Texas that I might start talking like that. But everything was very positive. I talked to 2 organizations within Oregon, Springfield and Clackamas County, and they had nothing but good things to say. Throughout, everybody said one of the things that they really liked the most was their huge network and their job board, and giving them access nationwide more than maybe a local company. So most of them got really diverse applicant pools from across the country. One said it was the best they'd ever worked with. They were timely, spot on, good communicators, return calls right away, etc. But those 2, I then asked who they had worked with at SGR, and they had worked with Ron, who's the owner or the president or whatever his title is. So then, since our proposal said that our project personnel would be Lynn Barboza, I checked on some of her references, and I talked to 4 different jurisdictions, 1 in Minnesota and 3 in Texas. And resoundingly, they all said the same thing, like super responsive, awesome experience. If they were to use SGR again, they would only request her. She was the best they'd ever worked with. They felt SGR had more resources due to being nationwide. They were able to draw more applicant pool than local firms, and they couldn't recommend them more. Great communication, great process, went very well. One mayor in Santa Fe, Texas, said if he had to have a concern, his only concern was there were a lot more conference calls instead of in person. So probably because Lynn I thought she was out of Texas, but it sounds like maybe she's out of Las Vegas. So she might not be as in person, but we're kind of used to this whole conference call thing. So that particular city put them on a really fast process. They did their recruitment in less than 90 days. So Lynn had to keep up a little bit. Very well prepared, most professional. They never had to wait on anything. Everything was in their inbox in a timely manner. Lynn would be the only person they would want to work with. Currently doing another, this is the city of Lubbock. Currently, they're also doing another recruitment with her for their auditor, I think. Always had a great experience. Just seeing if there's anything particularly. City of Castroville said they highly recommend that we use her. And then I talked to one counselor from Tigard, just as a council perspective, to see what he thought of their process. And he said he thought it went really well. They had a good pool of candidates, really thorough info on all candidates, felt he received things timely. He felt it was a really thorough process, felt that it had the SGR had a wider reach than other firms due to their national presence. So those were the referrals on SGR. When I spoke with Jennifer Fadden, whose name is on the front of our proposal originally, she kind of went through her process. And I think most of the processes all sound very similar amongst our candidates. So I just think it's probably going to come down to who we might think we could work with the best, or who might be able to reach the most candidates that we want. So that's SGR.
Okay.
Kim, do you want to tell them about the idea they had in the proposal?
Oh, right. In SGR's proposal, one thing that really stuck out to me was they had something called, I'm pulling it up on page 11.
Page 11.
What they called the first year game plan, or another advanced exercise. So they would work with our organization if we wanted them to develop an advanced exercise for the finalist candidates. And one example of such an exercise is the first year game plan, which is a process where finalist candidates are provided with contact information for elected officials, key staff, and community leaders, and then given free rein to make contact with all of them in advance and use those insights to help develop a first year game plan based on what they know so far. So that was it. It could be something like that, or they have other options, it sounds like, if we wanted to sort of make them do a little bit of work. So that was interesting.
Cool.
Well, I guess I can go next. I talked to Novak. So they had quite a few local references. So I talked to the city manager at Newburgh and Hillsborough and the assistant city manager over at Lake Oswego. They all worked with Heather Grimes, who's named in the agreement as the person we would be working with. And they all had very good things to say about her. Responsive, worked well with the city. They really, I couldn't find any issues, and I picked and poked trying to get them to, I was like, come on, there has to be something they could have done better, but they were all very positive about it. Because I knew from a process point of view, it's very similar to the agencies that we've talked to in my discussions with Russell and Kim. We talked a little bit about, how do you recruit, and they use job boards. They put together a brochure like the other firms do, and they advertise those on different job boards from, League of National Cities, League of Oregon Cities, different groups that represent different minority groups to make sure they're getting exposures in those quarters. So, they were checking all those boxes. They understood the rules about veterans' preferences in the state of Oregon, which I believe SGR did as well.
Yep.
So that was a concern that our labor attorney brought up, that want to make sure we were asking them. Their proposal didn't cover those advanced exercises that SGRs did, but because we'd had that conversation before I talked to Novak, I asked Novak if they can do something similar, and they responded, yes, they can. And they've done similar types of things, but it definitely sounded more ad hoc based on what we wanted. I like the fact that SGR just called it out in their agreement. What am I missing, guys?
That was it.
I think that's it. But yeah, I mean, they were solid. They would do a great job.
Russell, before you chime in, I just want to say one more thing about SGR, because we had talked about asking, how do they look for people that don't know they're looking for a job? So SGR said they have strong relationships with entities like the League of Oregon Cities. So they would call up the executive director directly and seek referrals for who he might think might be a good fit. And that was just one example she gave us. She said they would also review previous searches and from Oregon, and review candidates that still might be a good fit for our organization as well. So, yeah.
And Novak had similar methodologies, because I really tried to understand, how do you get to those candidates that might be awesome and think this opportunity is awesome, but aren't necessarily looking. And, they talked about their networks like that is how they go those individuals out. So,
yep.
Okay, well, I talked to Eric Jensen of Jensen Strategies for quite a while the other day. I guess it was yesterday morning. And they're more of a local firm. They do Northwest, although they have done this type of job outside of the state, because what they've experienced is that they do a great job for a city manager somewhere, and then the city manager moves out of state to another state, and then they get the phone call. So they're not nationwide, but they're certainly regional. In terms of contacts, they don't have the like the mailing list that SGR does, but they're heavily entrenched and acquainted and know extensively the Northwest contacts, especially in the state of Oregon. Eric was it Joe? Was he at Hillsborough? He was Hillsborough for like 14 years. He's known Joe for like 20 years. He's been in that industry. And they know all the people in LOC and ICMA and OCCMA. So some of the some of the very same connections. Hello? Nope, not me. Anyway, so one of the issues that we thought might be, it wasn't really an issue, but one of the questions we had about their proposal was that timeline, and Eric said that of course can be adjusted. It said that in their proposal. Like the other two, they are aware of the Oregon law about veteran preference. They're completely up to speed on that. I thought their brochures, the couple of brochures that they included, I thought were very nice. They did a great job. I thought that if you look at one, it truly captures the essence, the personality, the character of that particular city. I talked to Christy Martinez. She's the assistant city manager at Carlton, and they recently did a city manager search for them, and she couldn't say good things about them. In fact, she said they're going back to them to do some of their strategy planning. So she really enjoyed them. Cannon Beach Mayor gave them a thumbs up as well. And one of the things that I noticed in my discussions is, and one of the things that Eric stressed was that their specialty would be the personal contact, working on both sides, working with the candidates. He said it's very common. They call, they email, sometimes every day. How's it going? What's going on? They always take those phone calls and make sure that parties on both sides of the interviewing table are aware, up to speed, what's going on. So I thought that they would also do a great job. I posed the question about that activity. I don't think certainly it's beyond their capability to perform that activity. So, but I thought that they were equally up to speed. One thing we didn't talk about, us three, is the cost. What was it? SGR that's 24.9, not to exceed.
Novak 28 and Jensen 25.
Plus expenses, right, on both the other two?
Well, the
SGR was 25, 9 not to exceed, but then they also had some supplemental things that could cost more if we wanted. So
right.
But if I understood those right, all of them included the travel and costs in that not to exceed for the consultant, but for the if we had to fly a candidate in for interviews, we would have to cover that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And guarantees. So Novak had a first year guarantee, just like the other ones did.
Right.
They would also, if the candidate didn't work out in the first year. Additionally, if you did your first round and you didn't come up with anyone you wanted to move to the finalist round, that they would recast that net. If you get to the finalist round and decide you don't like any of them, there might be some upcharging at that point. But I think that was consistent across all three, if I remember correctly.
Anyway, so just for the benefit of the rest of the council, as we had a short meeting before this meeting, and we felt that all three were qualified. They're respected in the industry. They have a lot of great success stories across Oregon and the Northwest and Texas, and then it just came down to, I think Kim hit it on the head. Who do we think we would work well with? We have experience with Jensen and with SGR. So
I think what it came down with the SGR is I really wanted to hone in on the person that we would directly be working with, since I think there might have been a negative experience with SGR on somebody else from another entity, but different people, different consultants that we would be working with. And since Lynn got so many great accolades, I would feel it sounds like she would be a great fit. And I think maybe what it comes down to, do we want to be able to do, a huge national search, or do we want more localized? So, all the firms can do national, maybe just not have the reach that SGR has. So. Yeah.
And from my perspective, I really like that whole concept of the first year plan exercise. And it may not be the plan we actually use, but I think it would give us incredible insight into the leadership capability of an applicant. And I love the fact that SGR they just came out with that suggestion. You know,
It's in the proposal.
it's
Yeah.
in the proposal. If we hadn't have seen that in that proposal, we wouldn't have even known to ask
Mm-mm.
the other ones. So I really like that.
Okay, the other counselors, what questions or comments you have about what's been shared? Or thoughts?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys doing that work. Thank you for doing the legwork on talking to those folks. It's important to contact these people who have dealt with them in the past and truly get a sense of what their experiences were. I think that, you know, my impression of these is, you know, a lot of their proposals were similar, and I expected that. And, you know, they all kind of have the same format, a lot of the same jargon and fluffery in there a little bit. You know, it's a business unto itself, right? It's a little bit of a cottage industry doing this type of work. So you would expect them all to probably be very familiar with the other companies who are doing the same work and make sure that they say that they do the same thing. So to hear the on the ground reactions is good. So I appreciate that. The cost all seems relative to me. And I've said this to Joe, and I believe I've mentioned to somebody else as well. I think this is probably one of the most important decisions we'll make as a council for quite some time. So I'm not terribly concerned if one of them costs $5,000 more or whatever it is. We got to get it right.
Yeah.
So I think quite a few of the proposals went with the same language as far as, and Kim has said it here as well. Who's the best fit? You know, they were saying that about who's the best fit as a candidate for city manager for us, but I think we're looking right now who's the best fit for us to choose that city manager. So, you know, I'm pretty good with any of them. I like the idea of going national personally to cast a wide net because I want to encourage a diverse group of individuals to possibly qualify, but there's a lot of value in some local representation as well. But I don't want to limit our research, but that's my opinion.
Wasn't SGR's guarantee 18 months and not a year?
I
Yes.
think you're right. Mm-hmm.
So I would tend to lean towards SGR.
Doug, what do you think? You have questions, thoughts?
I kind of lean toward SGR as well. I I like the national reach. I personally think I don't put a whole lot of worry in the remote versus in-person meetings. I actually think I'd rather not pay to fly someone back and forth to meet with them for a couple hours. It's kind of silly. So I'm good with them. I like them.
What do you think, Mayor?
I like the national search approach. You know, and the one recent hire internally, some guy we got from Texas. Who would have thought we would have got a person from Texas? And he's done pretty good, better than average.
And he taught us how to say y'all.
What?
He taught us all how to say y'all.
I heard a lot of that today.
Yeah, I bet.
Y'all with a New Jersey accent too.
Yeah.
Y'all.
There's absolute value in you know, a local from a local candidate understanding the crazy Oregon way, but as we go through a process, now someone from out of state, we have such a talented, deep team on the city staff that if it's somebody new to Oregon, I think that person would do fine. So I like national. Of the two national, I would go with SGR. I'd lean towards SGR as well.
Sounds like a consensus.
Russell?
I think the same thing. I really like, first of all, 18 months. I like that. You never know what's going to happen. And I like the fact that they had that advanced exercise as part of, as an option. I really liked that. because that'll make them think on their feet, and as Tim said earlier tonight, that'll quickly, weed out someone who's not a strong communicator, who doesn't like to reach out and talk to people they don't know. That's gonna immediately be aware, and then they'll have to communicate, interact with staff and with council, and on a one-on-one, sort of like an interview process. I mean, that's like an extra interview outside of the formal interview, because they'll be asking questions of us. So I like it. I like SGR. I like that whole idea.
Any other comments or thoughts? If not, we'll just have Joe initiate a contract.
Yeah, I didn't explicitly say SGR, but I'm fine with that. I like what I see from them. So yeah, just wanted to get that on there.
Mayor, I just have one question in terms of contracting. So the proposal would be the basis for the scope of work for the contract.
Yep.
Is council satisfied with everything in that proposal? Timelines, the process that's proposed, or is there anything that we should be discussing, tweaking at all before that's finalized as part of the contract?
Kim, do you have any concerns? You probably know that contract better. I mean, the proposal better than anybody.
I didn't see anything that concerned me.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'll give another look through it too, of course, but if council is generally satisfied with that proposal, we'll use that.
And that one generally tentative bring on date or selection date of preferred candidate on what day?
It was in July, wasn't it?
It was mid-July. Final interviews week of July 15th.
Okay, 3 months. Okay.
Well,
So
can
with direction and the value of the contract, we can move very quickly. We don't have to wait for council authorization because it's less than 100K. So we'll jump on this right away because I know you guys want to move fast. So
Awesome. Yeah, it'd be yeah.
can I just add one more thing?
Sure.
Just a comment, because I really did enjoy talking to the Novak folks, and I thought Heather was great, and I think they're a solid company as well. And it was for me, it was just by the a hair's width, different.
Yeah, absolutely. They're great people.
All great companies.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Kim and Tim and Russell, for spending the time and digging deep and reporting back. I greatly appreciate you guys making that effort for us.
I really enjoyed it. I know I said it was out of my wheelhouse, but I actually ended up really enjoying the process. So
You were a natural.
Yeah. Maybe you're becoming a merchant.
oh yes.
I'm proud to say I don't know what that means. No.
That's because you didn't take the test. That's why. We all know what you are.
I think we need to retest. Maybe
Go right ahead.
do we have three people that vote for a work session on that?
Nope.
I will be somewhere. All right. So moving on, we only have 30 minutes left, and I don't know if we'll have time to cover it, but preliminary review of the CIP. Julia?
Yeah, so first of all, bear with me because I am trying something. I'm on my Surface talking to you, but I'm going to be sharing my screen. I hope, with on my computer. We'll see how this works so that I can walk through the documents that I emailed to you last night. I tried to keep the same format that we used last year, although admittedly we talked to you much earlier than we did this time. Last year we talked to you at your goal setting, which I believe was in January or February of last year, if I recall correctly. But same format where we're trying to show you where the fund balances are as we're starting this process. And then we have a listing of the projects that we believe are going to be complete this fiscal year. So they won't be carrying on. And then we've got quite a long list of projects that are underway, essentially, that we started in last year or beyond, and that we're continuing forward. We've got the original anticipated cost, the current anticipated cost, so if they've gone up or gone down, we're trying to reflect that there. Sometimes it looks quite different because we might have rolled things into one another, and we try to explain that. Investments that we have made through the end of this current fiscal year, so it's not necessarily what we spent this fiscal year, but anything up to the end of this fiscal year. Some of those are a little bit of projections because we're trying to figure out what we're going to spend through the end of this fiscal year, but it's pretty close. And then what we are proposing to include in the 1-year CIP for projects, as well as what we think we will be spending in the future. And then we've identified the funding source for those projects. So any questions on the existing projects that are continuing?
I find it just amazing the amount of money we have to spend every year on stormwater, swale repair and maintenance.
Yes. So Julia, this is Tim. This is awesome, by the way. And this question is probably more appropriate for the next category, which is the things that haven't started, but I think it does apply in some way to this. We've talked about this before, but are we identifying projects that are quote unquote grant ready, meaning even for existing ones that we're currently executing on, if we become aware of opportunities to get state or federal or county money in here to do it, that we're in a position to do it?
A little bit more on the 5-year CIP that I emailed you, where there's an asterisk that identifies where outside funding might be available for that project. We don't really have a lot of just off-the-shelf grant-ready projects, but in the list of new projects, we're trying to get them there. So in the list of new projects, for example, we're doing some preliminary design for the grade separated crossing of Cedar Creek Trail at 99W, so that we're better prepared when there are grant requests to be able to get us there. So I think we're working towards that.
Do you feel that you have a good feel for council's priorities on, because obviously we can't get every project to that level, right? That would be unreasonable, but do you have a good feel on what our priorities are in terms of where we need to focus on getting those available or to that grant ready?
I think so. I mean, I think that, I mean, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think, anything related to the Tonkin employment area and jobs, obviously the pedestrian bridge, trails, and that is a lot. I mean, there's a lot of things that we want to try to get ourselves ready for. But I believe that you guys have been pretty clear on what your priorities are.
And I just want to make sure that we're getting you all of that, and there's no questions about it. So, and if you need more time with us for that to go over some of that, let's get a work session going.
Mayor, you mentioned, and I've scrolled past the existing projects, but you mentioned just sort of a question about that. Craig Sheldon is obviously on the line as well, and if you have specific questions about those operation maintenance projects, he might be able to answer those.
I know that it's required by Clean Water Services, and we're doing the best we can. And folks don't always realize just the cost of doing business in all these different buckets.
Yeah, and that's what we're really trying to demonstrate for you, as well as anybody else that is interested, is that there are a lot of different buckets, and they're for different purposes and different funding sources, and trying to help show that whole picture, because I think the public especially doesn't necessarily understand why we spend money one place and not another place, but it's regarding the funding.
We spend a lot of money on those swales, but they do handle the stormwater for us and filter that water and get it back into the environment cleanly. And unlike a lot of cities, especially on the East Coast, where stormwater is handled through their sewer system, which means they are paying a lot of money for capacity in their sewer systems and treatment plants for water that is effectively doesn't need to be treated in a lot of cases. So there is a savings that we get on the other side of that.
Oh yeah, can you imagine that combined sewage stormwater systems? Ugh. No thanks.
So if there's no other questions or comments on the existing projects that are continuing, we actually have a relatively short list of new projects. I'll kind of go through them. In the transportation component, there's really one capital, like a truly capital project, which is beginning design for the Tonkin Employment Area East-West Collector. As you know, that has been something that we've been trying to get EDA funds for and other funds. And one of the things that we keep hearing is that you don't know enough about what you're asking for. And so we certainly will continue to hope and continue to try and continue to do everything that we can to ask for funds, but this will give us the funds to do the design, to answer the questions, so that hopefully we'll open ourselves up for either being able to get outside funds and or getting the developers to just build the darn road. And then the other three transportation projects are operations projects. If you have any questions about those, Craig can answer those for you.
Cool. I got one question, Craig, on expanding the water treatment plant with Wilsonville. Our share of the 5 MGD expansion is estimated at 8.5 million. Is that so expensive because there is so much seismic work on the site that we're doing at the same time in that dollar figure?
Yeah, there is quite a bit of seismic work. We're actually we're finishing up a pilot study that was requested by OHA, and we're hoping that some of that cost will come down if we don't have to do the clear wells, but we're reviewing 30% drawings right now. So that cost has got quite a bit of contingency in it right now, but that is the plan. And then we also, why it went up is because we combined about 3 or 4 other projects into the 20 million instead of doing them separately.
Okay.
But it's always kind of been, this first phase was going to be 25, 26 million. And then the 30 million years out is, I forget what that number is, but it's
our 12.7.
Yeah. We won't have a whole lot of that, but yeah.
Adding a little capacity, it's a big price.
Hoping to have an IGA to you guys in May or June on this project is what we're hoping for.
Okay. Thanks, Craig.
But we're working with Wilsonville, so I don't know how long it's going to take to get that. It's taken longer than I thought before on IGAs.
Oh, we hunkered down for like 5 years.
So
we have a new sheriff in town over in Wilsonville,
so hopefully it'll go quick.
Yeah.
And Josh can get involved a little later in this process, and we'll get it knocked out.
So Julia and Joe, the federal congressional team was asking for inputs on potential infrastructure and transportation projects for earmarks in the transportation bill or upcoming bills. Have we gotten them a list, or any of these projects qualify for getting on their radar?
So Julie, I think there were 5 different project submissions. I don't have them handy.
Yeah, one was the Festival Plaza parking lot. One was the Tonkin Employment Area East-West Collector. One was the Tannery cleanup. There was a broadband one.
Yep.
And I don't remember what the 5th one was.
Awesome.
Remember, it's always just the Festival Plaza.
Oh.
Don't need to know. I mean, the community wants to know, but other people don't need to know that it's doubles as a parking lot.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for that. Okay.
At least that's my perspective of the thing. I could, if it sells easier to call it a festival plaza slash parking lot, great, but the name sells at the federal level when you call it a festival plaza.
Yes. Actually, our CFM partners believe that
Yeah.
project, because of the cost and the elements and everything else, is pretty sexy, for lack of a better term, in terms of earmarks.
That's awesome. Well, Julia, thanks for submitting that. And just, you know, I think it's great to go after that because a lot of taxes go out of Sherwood that never come back. So it'd be nice to get some of that back into Sherwood.
Yeah. So other technically new projects on this list is the Rock Creek sewer upgrade. It's actually a phase 2 or a 1B of another project, but that's all being funded by Clean Water Services, but we've got a budget for it because we pay for it and they reimburse us. And then there's some improvement or some contributions to the county for relocation of utilities associated with that road project. Like I said previously, the Cedar Creek Trail grade separated crossing preliminary study to try to answer some questions there as well, so that we have a better understanding of what those costs are going to be and what the obstacles are going to be, so that we can better prepare ourselves for grants, and then the festival plaza.
So Julia, a question on that. How long do we have to float the $750,000 before Clean Water Services pays it?
I don't think it's very long, Bob. I believe Bob's on the line, and he might be able to answer that, or David can. It's
And don't we know somebody over there, or somebody who's going to be over there soon? I mean, don't we have a connection now, an inside
This is
man?
Bob. This is Bob. We do a monthly billing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I knew it wasn't very long.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Councilor Rosner, is that not fast enough? Do I need to work on that when I get there?
Well, it's never fast enough, Joe. You know that. But no, the reason I answer the question, and this doesn't qualify, is if it's a deal where we submitted at the end of the project, there's value in maybe getting a loan and adding the interest cost to it, so those monies are available for other things in the short term. But if we're paying monthly, that's fine.
So next on the sheet is just to show you a very, very conservative look of where we think we would be with all those projects, assuming we don't get outside funding, where we would be at the end with the fund balances. I don't have the replacement and reserve ending balances because that's kind of done between finance and public works, and they just tell me what that number is at the beginning of this process. Some of the funds look like they're going to be quite low. Again, to be very, very conservative, we don't include projected revenues for next year, and we know we're going to have revenues next year. And so I kind of look at that as a worst case scenario, just so you kind of have that picture in mind. And then there are some projects that need to be added onto the 5-year CIP. Most of these are water projects. There might be some road related projects, now that I think about it, that I didn't get on here, but they're going to be operation projects based on Public Works's inventory of what needs to be added to the list.
So is there a view into this, and we don't need it for this meeting, but it'd be interesting to see that, because like, especially in the water fund, some of those funds are allocated and are building for future infrastructure projects that we have to do. And a lot of that's built into the rates that our customers pay. So we have the funds to maintain the infrastructure. Is there a view that shows like committed dollars versus non-committed dollars? Does that make sense?
Not that I maintain, other than, well, not at my level. I don't know if Craig and or David have that level for those types of projects. I have a spreadsheet that looks at my 5-year forecast or the 5-year CIP. But I know that I know it's good for the first year, solidly good. I know the second year it's pretty close. going out beyond that for me, because mine is so much based on SDCs and things like that. I don't know, it's based on development, it's based on those types of things. So we don't necessarily know.
I was thinking more of like the water fund,
Oh, okay.
in some of the water infrastructure and stuff like that. That I guess the real question in my head is, are we tracking, are we maintaining and building funds up that are going to meet our infrastructure needs as we move forward?
Yeah, and I think Craig can speak to that, but I am fairly certain that he is, and that's because they're constantly looking at that. But Craig, do you want to talk about that?
I can mention that we do look at our rates every couple of years, and we're currently in the middle of that process with these projects going into that rate. These water projects that are added was from the resiliency plan. We have 50 years to complete those, and our resiliency plan is uploaded at the front end due to the fact that there's Oregon Street Road widening project, the part of our backbones in there. So that's why you've got a longer period on some of these resiliency projects that have not been added before into the rate study, the financial update that you'll probably get here in the next couple of months, but they will be going in this time because we just finished that project about less than a year ago. So,
okay.
Does that answer what you need, Counselor?
Yeah, it does for now. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand how to interpret these numbers, knowing that there's committed dollars behind them, right?
Right. So I can David can probably share more with you, but I can share that our sanitary reserve for replacement, we don't have enough money to do what we need for the sanitary. Our water over the last several financial part showed bigger rate increases than 2%, but we couldn't do bigger than 2% because of the charter. And that was before we added these projects. That was also before we stopped billing for our own utility. So it wouldn't surprise me that we're looking at over the 2% again when we actually, Deb gets that information to you guys.
Okay. Yeah, that's important to know. Thank you, Craig.
Yep.
Hey, Craig, can I ask a question really fast?
Yeah.
In the document that Julie put together, what does the SM and what does the SR stand for in front of each of those bulleted items?
Where are you talking?
It's
like SM 1.1 tier 1 backbone.
Yeah. What is SM?
That's identified in our it's in our plan.
Oh, it matches like
those things matches up with what's in our resiliency plan. That's all those SM 1.
And the SR. Okay. Thank you.
Seismic reservoir, seismic main.
Oh, there we go. Now I can sleep tonight. Thank you.
Like it has to be based on something.
Yeah.
I'll also mention, since Craig was talking about the rates, we also have in this fiscal year, it's going to roll over a little bit into next fiscal year, looking at our sanitary and stormwater rates. We know something is off and we need to figure out exactly what, because we don't believe we're collecting enough to do the projects that we've identified in our master plans. And so we need to look at that. And so Bob's working on RFPs right now, and we'll be getting that updated. So hopefully we'll be able to start adding more money into those pots and being able to do more projects in the near future on those as well. Another thing I wanted to get your input on, and it's a new one, is how to respond to recommendations from the Traffic Safety Committee. We do have a pot of money that we have allocated sort of for traffic safety or traffic calming measures. But there's other projects that might be bigger projects that are perhaps already identified in our master plans, but they're not identified to happen in the 5-year time frame. And so what I'm doing here is just sort of tracking the ones that are potentially bigger projects, and seeing how you want to deal with that. If you want to add those to the 5-year CIP, if they're not already on the 5-year CIP, have more conversation. I just want to get your input. I don't want to.
So nothing comes from the committees nothing should come from a committee and then go into a budget. So if there's a recommended project from a city advisory committee, then then we have to have a work session about it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Decide, do we like what they have to say? Do we hate what they have to say? Something in between, and then kind of establish it's, based on conversations with staff as well, decide, give feedback and prioritize it as well.
I thought the way we had envisioned that was that we were going to allocate a certain amount of money in the budget every year for kind of smaller ticket items, right? Where that committee would have, based on the rules that they've put in place and the toolkit and everything, they'd have sway to add a sign or, the small thing, like we're giving them $100,000 a year. And then once that's gone, it's gone. But any major ticket items that what the mayor said was accurate. Is my memory incorrect, or is that what other people thought we were doing as well?
That's what I thought we were doing. And maybe I haven't seen it, but I feel like there needs to be a documented process for those rules of engagement, and when do they have to bring the recommendation to the council versus when can they act on their own, for, as Doug put it, for adding a sign or, trimming bushes to create better sight lines, or something like that. But because I don't want other items that might be really important to sit in no man's land because there's no budget or it's 5 years out on the CIP, and maybe we need to have a conversation about it, right?
Yeah, I would like to jump in too. I agree with all of that. I want to make sure that the Traffic Safety Committee realizes that, that I believe that they are fulfilling their mandate. And I think they're doing an amazing job. If you've listened to any of those meetings, they are 100% serious about these safety issues. What I would like to know is how did we get from reported concern to a $2 million traffic circle? What was that process? So, and I think the mayor's right that, that kind of a project should, obviously there should be some staff input, a lot of discussion. In my mind, I'm thinking like this would never appear in this document unless Bob waved his magic wand of, engineering approval. And that is the solution that he recommends. So I need to know where we are in that process. And I think we just need to have a work session or a discussion about it.
So just to clarify, these projects that are here, so one of them I was able to clearly find in the TSP, and I remember the conversation was, we're not going to move forward with their request because there's already a TSP project that would address that. And so they're sort of recommending that might be elevated in the CIP process. The other two were forwarded to me because the same philosophy, but I couldn't find that exact project. So I need to look back through or listen back through the minutes so I can tie it a little bit better to a TSP project. But my understanding is that these projects that are forwarded, they're not creating these projects.
Right.
We're informing them. These projects already are on the list somewhere. And they're sort of saying, hey, through this process, council, as you're doing the CIP, you might want to elevate this in importance.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, and just to beat on the grant ready piano again, that's pretty close to a school. So, there might be a safe routes to school component for that as well.
So
I don't like any of the design of what's being suggested, by the way, of these projects. So that's a whole other thing.
So I think this might be its own work session, so I don't want to bog us down. We've only got a few more minutes. So I think I need to probably talk with the chief and Joe and Kristen and kind of figure out how to bring this topic back to you guys at a later date. I did want to just briefly show you, let's see if I can do this. Yay, I can. This is the 5-year CIP. Again, similar format to what we've shared in the past. I did this last and I did it late. And so there are a few areas where the numbers don't match. So for example, the Festival Plaza is off. It shows 400,000 on this document. It's 500,000. So I'll correct that, but I wanted you to be able to see because the document I just showed you is for really current cycle stuff and new things being added to the 5-year CIP, but I wanted you to be able to re-look at what the 5-year CIP shows.
So Julia, on this list, the council talked last year at some point, after some engineering input, of redrawing the lines of the roundabout at Century and Langer Parkway. Is that on this list?
That's being done, Craig, like soon?
Mayor, this is Craig. So the design's been done. We actually are separating it out because you have lighting as well as striping, and the striping companies really don't do the lighting. So we've got bids back we'll probably use Frailer to do the actual lighting part of it, and we're actually bidding the actual striping part right now. So that is on this under traffic calming. What I wanted to share is when you're talking about just a couple signs, if you're going to give that to the authority to the traffic committee, you can look at about $300 a sign. The 81,000 that's in this is actually a big project like that. So it is on here, should be done before June, end of June.
So I've got a follow-up, and then I see Sean's got his hand up. With the design, in the event we have another big draw type thing by Langers, can that new design, is that still the solution? What I don't want is we restripe this and then someone tells me, or tells the council, whoever's on council, in 3 years, or that, with this higher demand, this is wrong.
Mayor, I don't want that to happen either.
Yeah.
I think that the lighting part is a safe route to go right now, because it's going to have to happen no matter what. But the striping part, if we know something or we hear something that's coming in, we probably need to make sure that what we're doing now is going to be the end result versus going back to double lanes.
Right. I agree.
So, I mean, we don't know for sure what's going on, but I've heard, this possibility or that possibility, and
right.
It could put some serious traffic to that property. So, and I'm not an engineer, so I don't know if
this would be the time to find out.
Yeah.
I think the lighting, we can move forward with the lighting, but if that's something the council want, we can slow down the process and not bid that right this minute, and just to make sure that is in fact.
What's the cost for the, actually, Sean, you've had your hand up. Sorry.
Well, it's somewhat related to this, and we're talking about signs and striping and lighting. I assume these all fall under the umbrella of safety. I'm just wondering, when it comes to budget and paying for these things potentially, does that fall under the recreational marijuana tax revenues that we will hopefully be collecting soon?
Certainly falls in the bucket, sure. Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. Doug, question, comment?
Yeah, it was just a follow-up on the same project. I guess I didn't, it's been so long since we had this, we gave direction to restripe this roundabout, which that's another conversation, but I guess I'm unclear on what the lighting part of it was. I was maybe forgot that we were doing lighting. I thought we were just restriping. So what's the lighting piece?
So the recommendations from the traffic engineers is to change out the lighting at the crosswalks to a higher light that you can actually see people better than what you can now.
So does that mean the whole pole has to be replaced, or just the bulb or the fixture?
That's what we're working on right now.
Okay, so we don't know yet. Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
We just got pricing back on a couple different things. So we got it the end of February, 1st of March, and it's on our list. And so that's where we're at.
Greg, what's your ballpark guesstimate on what it costs to restripe that thing?
So, well, we haven't got pricing on that, but I'm going to say the 81,000 that's in here is for roughly everything for that project out of the 100,000 that's budgeted.
So, but that includes the lighting.
That includes the lighting, yeah. I want to say it's somewhere, Mayor, everything is around 50,000. I think the lighting come in about $4,000 or $5,000 higher than the estimate that we were given. So, but I think it's probably going to come in about 81,000 for the whole project.
So maybe we can, in the near term, just circle back to just review the project.
Yep.
I think that's just smart. I mean, if the lighting piece of it is, of the 81,000 is, you know, is 55, 60,000 and striping is, you know, 15 or 20, then it might not be kind of a moot point, but I think
the lighting and the actual striping, I don't have it with me right this second, but I want to say it was like 49,000, something like that, everything together.
I appreciate that, but if you were just to do the lighting and not do the striping, or just to do the striping, so let's just.
More than happy to get you the numbers.
Be awesome.
I just have them at the office. I don't have them with me.
I think that's important context as we talk about holding off on striping or not, because, you know, keep in mind this all started because we had a pretty serious accident with some kids there, and if we're not talking about physically changing the layout of that, we're talking about restriping. So theoretically, if the demand increased in 5 years, you could restripe again, right? But that's why I would like to know just what the striping cost component of this is, because it's not like we're spending $1 million here. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars.
No problem. I'll get it to you.
But that's cool. So we're butting up against the hour. Actually, we're just past it. Anything more council wants to know about this? Please direct questions to Joe and Julia, and certainly we can bring back anything we want to shoot, you know, get more information on, or on the one-on-ones you have with Joe and Kristen can be done there too.
Yeah, and the sooner the better. This was very helpful because this all gets incorporated into the proposed budget, and of course you guys get to weigh in on this again as budget committee and then ultimately as council. So you'll see these again, but if there's anything that we're really missing or you see a problem, the sooner the better from a budget development standpoint.
And you're doing a whole project budget and all that for our anticipated formation of a new urban renewal district.
Correct.
That too, so. Awesome.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
This is Craig. Hey, one other project that's not in this capital that I think it probably fits more in the operation is the tree issues we have on Sunset.
Yes.
So that's more of a operational, I believe, versus putting in the capital, but it would be funded through streets probably. There's about 33 trees between Sunset and Lad Hill versus going up the hill towards Cinnamon Hills on the one side that are plum trees that we've had damage that we're going to have to do some work on. We're actually putting costs together and stuff on that right now. So either very extensive trimming or with some of them being removed, and it might be the best time to go in and actually remove them and replant something that's not as bad as the flowering plum trees that they put there years ago.
Yeah, if I would love it if the conclusion was to rip them all out and replace them with something that doesn't create a walking hazard with all the plums that end up getting on the sidewalks for weeks on end.
Correct.
But I think that's more of operational. It could go in capital, but just so you know, that's either going to be in the proposed budget is where we're probably looking at putting that. So versus the capital.
All the squirrels that eat those plums might have something to say about that.
I think some of the neighbors would be very happy with the removal of them.
And a lot of them, as you said, they definitely got battered pretty good in the ice storm. So
Yep.
Combination of just good timing, opportunity. So
Jogging down that sidewalk can be a little treacherous when there's covered in plums.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding us about that, Craig.
Yep.
Awesome. Tim, you get your hand up for last comment, or are you just lingering?
Hand us down.
All right. So we will adjourn the work session and go to the city council meeting in 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Everyone take a break.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.